Thank you. It's my new thing. Decided to pick it up. I need a new phone.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2014 or the 2014 AGM for the IEEE Winnipeg section. My name is Sharif. I'm the current chair for the coming 2-3 hours, and then we'll be done. We'll have a new administration. So here's the agenda for today. There'll be a few welcome and introductory remarks, a few of our news and awards for the previous year. Then we are very happy to have Dr. Marcia Friesen, the head of IEEE, who's going to talk to us about moral engineer and what we do and how we feel about it. After that, we are very glad to have Professor Kinsner, Witold Kinsner, who is the president-elect of IEEE Canada, which is really a huge honor for us here in the Winnipeg section, who's going to give us his vision of IEEE Canada in the coming 2 years. At 7, we're going to have the dinner back there and networking. And this is obviously the official AGM for the year. So at 7:30, we're going to have the official business in terms of the formal reporting on our affairs for last year, the financial report, the elections for the incoming administration. We have closing remarks and adjournment at 8. So hopefully we'll try to stay on time. We already are late, but we thought, well, it's better to wait until settle down. So here's a bit of an introduction about our Winnipeg section. We have basically 8 chapters here. We have communications, computer and computation intelligence, EMDS, EDU ManCom, 7 actually, PES, robotics and waves. And then we have affinity groups, gold, flat members, V and TISC. And then we have 4 student branches at the University of Manitoba, Lakehead, Assiniboine College, and Red River College. Our membership is quite steady. It's growing slightly, but it is at 590 members at the moment. We have 7 fellows and 79 senior members, which is a good number, but hopefully we'll be able to increase in the coming few years. Regular members and affiliate members, we have 307 and 17. And graduate students and student numbers are 80 for graduate students and 100 for undergraduate students. So a few of our chapter activities and section news, student awards and other events. So these are some of the highlights of our events and achievements of this year. Basically, all the IEEE Winnipeg sections or affiliate groups have had at least 3 events in 2015. So events is like, let's say, talks or tutorials or some kind of event that was sponsored by the chapter, IEEE chapter. Waves chapter in particular have had 9 events, which is a very active chapter. Professor Puyan Mojabi is the chair of that chapter, and they were able to attract 6 IEEE distinguished lecturers to Winnipeg, which was really good. TISC held an impressive 18 events in 2013. So TISC, under Professor Kinsner's direction, has had a very active year. Also, TSAT, the satellite program, which has been a very active, ongoing activity for the last few years. Professor Kinsner, again, is the champion of that, has been currently offering training as in technical training in different aspects of satellite technology for 4,200 university and high school students. As a matter of fact, when I was putting together these numbers, I had to ask Professor Kinsner twice, you mean 4,200? And he confirmed it's 4,200, so quite impressive. And obviously I would say the most exciting event of last year, and personally I'm very, very proud, I'm sure you all are, that Professor Kinsner became the new president-elect of IEEE Canada. So that's obviously a huge honor for us here in Winnipeg, and it's really wonderful, so congratulations. Okay, so this was a very brief, informal report here on the news. We also have offered 3 awards this year for student thesis, undergraduate thesis award. These are the IEEE Winnipeg Section Awards. The first place were Roy, Jacob, Mark Friesen, Tyler, and Paul Rustoni on real-time traffic monitoring utilizing Bluetooth device discovery. These are basically theses that were presented as part of their graduation at the U of M, and we've made a contest, and we picked the committee picked the winning numbers. Second place, we have developing and control of an electric motorcycle driven by a permanent magnet brush DC motor, and that by Sunrise Kira and Anakagi, Alicia and Marcia. Third place, we have Alfred, autonomous logic fulfillment for the replenishment of ethanol-based drinks. I thought that was a very interesting title, but still it was a good piece of work, so it got third place by Sharon Dixon and Matthew McQuaid. So these are the awards. We also, this year was actually quite interesting because we had a considerably larger number of teams. This is for the IEEE Extreme Programming Contest, and for those of you who don't know much about this contest, it's a worldwide contest where we have, let's say, small teams of 3-4 people, and these students typically would have assignments that are just given to everybody in the world, and these are programming assignments that they do over the period of 24 hours. So there's a lot of caffeine involved here and all that. So this year, actually, we had a considerably larger number of teams that registered and received training for that competition. And 8 of our teams actually participated in the contest, and 2 of the teams were placed in the top 50 worldwide. I think the number of teams worldwide are in the thousands, right? It's like a few thousand people, so we're talking 50. That's 3,000, right? Yeah, so 50 over 3,000, so that's very, very good. So that's that, and I guess we will stop now in terms of the IEEE business. We're having Dr. Friesen's talk on the moral engineer, and then we're going to have Dr. Kinsner, and then dinner, and then we'll start the formal AGM proceeding. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. Do you think you can almost see over my head? Yeah? Okay, good. If you can't, then tell me to move out of the way. So thank you very much for inviting me to speak here tonight at your AGM. You may be wondering who I am. I'm Marcia Friesen, and I'm here in almost 3 hats tonight. I am the president of the Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists of Manitoba for this year. And that is the regulatory body for engineering and geoscience in Manitoba. And I'm pleased to bring you the best wishes and the greetings of the council and the members of the association. I'm also the director of the Internationally Educated Engineers Qualification Program at the University of Manitoba. That's my day job. And that is a program that takes newcomers to Canada who were engineers in their home country and offers a pathway to have their credentials recognized for EN registration in Manitoba. And the program includes academic work as well as a co-op experience and cultural orientation and communication development and networking opportunities. I'm also assistant professor in design engineering, and I mostly work in a collaborative research program in computer engineering, developing agent-based modeling and simulation platforms for healthcare applications like epidemic spread on various scales, whether it's through a hospital or through a city or through a province or a country, modeling patient flow in emergency departments, and also looking at mHealth, mobile apps under the eHealth umbrella, so mobile apps that foster health and well-being. The theme for my talk is the moral practice or the moral practitioner. And what does that mean? Maybe it'll be obvious at the end. I'll start by saying that in my view, engineering is a profession that would make a good thriller on TV. There's a lot of cop shows and crime shows and legal shows and hospital shows, but there's no engineering shows that I know of. The closest I came is this show Medium, which you may have seen. Medium is about this main character who's a woman, and it is primarily a crime drama, but her husband is an aerospace engineer, and every now and then he gets to say something cool about that. And he gets to be a normal guy, and his name is even Joe, and he's clear-headed, and he's practical, and he's not easily flustered, and he's very solution-oriented when he's helping her figure out her work. When you look at movies, there's maybe a few more options about engineers, and I've heard this movie often called the Engineers movie, and it is about Apollo 13, the ill-fated space mission in the early 1970s. And we maybe know, or I know this movie by those actors, right? Tom Hanks and Kevin Bacon and the other handsome gentleman there. But in reality, these were the folks that were a part of Apollo 13. There was a primary crew of Lovell, Mattingly, and Hayes, but then Mattingly was replaced by Swigert because of some exposure to German measles. They couldn't send Mattingly up into space. So Swigert went instead, but Mattingly was critical in the solution that safely brought these astronauts back to Earth. So James Lovell, he came to the space program through a military career, but the other three gentlemen had initial degrees in engineering, mechanical and aerospace engineering. And when you think of the rest of the crew that supported Apollo 13 from the ground, there are undoubtedly a number of engineers in that area, in that venue as well. So why do I think engineering would make a good thriller? Because I've pitched this idea to people, they say, you've got to be kidding me. What are you going to show, like a design office where everybody's at their computer? That's going to be really interesting. And I say no, because when you think of the work we do, it can be very intricate and it can be very complex. And we push back the limits that technology wants to set with us. And we work against the forces that cause our work to want to fail. And that could be any force ranging from gravity, or water erosion, or metal fatigue, or limits on data transfer rates. And like any good thriller, we experience incredible resolution and satisfaction when we see those intricate pieces of our work coming together as a whole, and what our work does in the everyday lives of people. So Apollo 13 is a really good example of that. A friend of mine worked on the Boeing 787 project here in Winnipeg, and you couldn't get him to stop talking about it. If you ever asked him about his work, he just couldn't stop. Manitoba Hydro's building is a LEED award-winning building right here in our city. The Disraeli Bridges was a very interesting challenge. A friend of mine worked with the PCL project manager there, and the deck pieces that were precast and set into place, they were done so with 2 cranes on the water. So one piece would be craned separately by 2 cranes, and the cranes on the water would have to coordinate getting this piece up and into place. And I just think that's really exciting. Maybe I'm the only one. But then there are a lot of invisibles in our lives, the things that we take for granted, like clean water and reliable electricity, like transportation systems and infrastructure. My first degree is in agricultural engineering, and agriculture worldwide is a highly engineered system. And you may say, yeah, I can see that. There's combines and there's, stuff that moves and there's machinery. But think of this. You can walk into almost any grocery store in Winnipeg, in the middle of the continent, in January, and get a pineapple for under $4. That is evidence of an engineered system that we're able to do that. My partner is a lawyer, and whenever I point these things out to him, he always says, well, thank you to all the lawyers for making this happen, this wonderful world that we live in. And that's sort of his joke about how useless his profession is in his view. He's a bit of a jaded lawyer. But because engineering has the potential for such high drama, and because we work directly for the interests of the public around us, engineering has also been given the right and the responsibility to regulate itself. And those things go hand in hand, the right and the responsibility. So the government has recognized that we need to ensure competent engineering practice, and the government has also recognized that they themselves don't possess the expertise to regulate the profession. And thus, through a law, they have mandated that an association be created, and the purpose of that association is to have the right and the responsibility to regulate the profession. And that is why a PEGM exists, to ensure qualified engineering practice. We could, as engineers, we could be regulated by another body, for example, a government department, or a commission of the professions, or something similar. But it's our right to regulate ourselves, and that's a privilege that we don't want to use. But I have to say, I do understand this is a bit of a dry depiction of a PEGM, and I think it's particularly dry to IEEE members because statistically, these folks don't register in proportionate numbers. A lot of electrical and computer engineers choose not to register with a PEGM. So what is this? Is it like a certificate in your wallet? Is it like a driver's license with a picture and you have to go renew it every 4 years? Is this a PEGM in office that is just carries out some unknown activities? Well, I'd say it's more than that. It's a community of over 7,000 professional members that wants to be my community and your community. A place to develop a professional identity as an engineer, a place to really identify with what you do and with others who also identify with that. If you're an EIT or a graduate student, a PEGM is a place where other professional members are obligated to offer you the mentorship you need to become a professional engineer. And by the code of ethics, where we are obligated by our ethical obligations to support the development of our colleagues throughout our career. And so this strong self-governance has led to a high degree of public trust in engineers and in the profession. And how do we know that there's a high degree of public trust? Well, the PEng is a highly recognized post-nominal in Canada. If you say PEng, most people will know what that is. Most people will know what the iron ring is. And when they do surveys of who's the most trusted professionals, there's police and there's firefighters. I'm not sure if there's police actually, I know there's firefighters. But engineers always rank highly. One of my former students and now a friend was an immigrant to Canada, and we took a few years to settle him and his family here, and he became licensed with a PEGM, first as EIT and then as PEng, and after a while he was ready to buy a house. He had an income of about $70,000 at that time, and his wife had an income of about $30,000. She was working part-time. And they went to the bank to get a mortgage, and they were approved for $400,000 on that income. And he said, he asked the banker, why did you approve me for so much? And the banker apparently said to him, well, because you're an engineer. With engineers, the repayment rates are over 99%. So what creates this trust, and how is this reputation built? Is it just by each engineer going out and doing their thing, and we all do it sort of reasonably well, and so collectively and sort of by accident and by good luck we create this strong public trust? Or is there a bigger arc? Is there a bigger collective vision that we can be a part of? I think there is a bigger arc. And there's a scholar, oh, I should have shown this a little sooner. There's a scholar, Thomas Green, who talks about the development of moral practice and moral practitioners, and he calls this the formation of conscience. And he simply defines conscience as the capacity of each person to be their own judge. And he says that there are 5 voices of conscience. So I encourage you to try to forget about your everyday ideas and definitions of morality or moral practice or conscience. Set aside any thinking you have of these notions as things of right and wrong or good and bad, and simply think of moral practice as this: linking in our minds what we do and how we feel about what we do. That's what moral practice is about. And I'll briefly talk about 2 of the 5 voices of conscience. Green says that conscience is craft, and craft is one's technical skill, and I don't think any of us would dispute that. That to be a conscious and a moral practitioner, you have to have strong technical skill. But Green says it also includes the ability to judge your own performance. So when you feel moral emotions like pride or joy or shame or embarrassment at your work, then you are enacting conscience's craft. It's when you say, yes, I did it, it's okay, but I know where I could do better. That's a highly honed conscience. Conscience is also membership in a community and acquiring or taking in the values and the norms of that community. So the norms are the behaviors and the attitudes that the community values. And we can be weakly normed or we can be strongly normed. And when we're weakly normed, we do these things, but only because we sort of feel an obligation to. We go to church on Sunday because it's expected of us, or to mosque or temple or synagogue. We call our mother because she'll be upset if we don't. We go to class on time because it's easier to go to class on time than catching the consequences of not being there. So we do these things, but not necessarily because maybe we may not believe in them, but we do them because it's easier to do them than to suffer the consequences of not doing them. That's called weak normation. But when we're strongly normated, it means we truly believe in the values and we believe in the values of that community. And we own them as if they are our own. So then, if we're strongly normated, then if we come to class late, or if we hand in bad work, or if we skip going to our place of worship, or if we forget to call our mother, then we feel moral emotions again, such as shame, or anxiety, or fear, or sorrow. So Green says that a moral practitioner has a conscience of craft, so of technical skill, but the ability to judge their own skill, as well as a conscience of membership, having acquired the values of the community and taking them in as their own. Green also talks about 3 other consciences, but I am not going to talk about them here today. I just wanted to talk again about linking what we do, and we talk a lot about this, right? We talk a lot about what is it that we do? What is engineering really? What are IEEE members really doing? But how often do we talk about how we feel about what we do? And I say you can look at this question in 2 ways. You can think about doing engineering well. And doing engineering well is an emphasis on technical competence without a serious considerations of whether the projects are good projects or where they come from. The ethical guidance is assumed to come from the public and not from within the engineering profession. So the public is deciding what is worthwhile to do. So the public, perhaps the public is a government, is the government through a representative of the public. So the public decides that we needed a new bridge to replace the Disraeli Bridge, or that we should invest in road upgrades, or that there will be a new subdivision in Waverly West, or that we're going to collectively as a country focus on oil sands development over renewable options, or the government decides how much attention to put into Lake Winnipeg cleanup. All of these are external decisions, and engineers receive the instructions, we bid on work, and we carry it out to the best of our technical ability. That's doing engineering well, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's also doing good engineering. And doing good engineering has an emphasis on ethical consciousness and consideration from within the profession. So engineers take a leading role and decide with a community voice where and how to apply our technical expertise. So what do I mean here? Well, I think this is a good example of what I mean. I was listening to CBC in December, a show called White Coat Black Art, and it's about medicine. And this episode of White Coat Black Art was called The Guru and the Hackers. And the podcast talked about an event called Hacking Health. This was a pitch night in Montreal that brings together medical professionals and software developers and venture capitalists and entrepreneurs to pitch how IT can solve long-standing health issues. And Joe Cafazzo from the Center of Global E-Health Innovation in Toronto opened the event with a brief welcome, and this is what he said. As an engineering professor, I get frustrated with seeing people walk right by the hospital to go to some startup that's doing another photo sharing app. So what's he saying? That talent is being wasted? That engineers are being irresponsible in how they use their skills? That photo sharing is ridiculous? None of these explicitly, but he's saying that there are serious problems that need solving, and we have the resources to do it. And as engineers, healthcare needs us. So for many years, my socialist self, the socialist inside of me, pondered the question, should we require every engineer that at a certain point in their careers, they could choose when, that they have to go and spend a certain amount of time, let's say 5 years, in what I call human welfare industries, and then they can go do whatever they want. Because I thought this, in the big picture, things like climate shifts, extreme poverty, a world that's going to have 9 billion people in our lifetime, these present us with challenges of clean water, of energy sustainability, of food production and distribution sustainability, housing and transportation. And no, those aren't just technical issues. They're social, they're political, they're economic, but they are also issues that require technical intervention. So, should everybody spend 5 years working on these problems and then go and do whatever they want? Or, on the other hand, is there a role for the freewheeling, the solution seeking a problem? My colleague, Bob McLeod, whom some of you know, he comes up with ideas for mobile apps that'll do certain things. And then he explains them to me very excitedly. And I sometimes look at him and I say, well, I think that's a solution looking for a problem. By which I mean, I don't see it addressing a real need as far as I can see. And this was the criticism of the iPad, right, when it was launched. The mainstream media really pressed upon this notion of what the heck is this supposed to be used for? We don't really get it. We have phones, we have laptops, why do we need something in between? However, we have to recognize that technology evolution is often characterized by solution-seeking problems. So early Pac-Man games evolved into today's game engines that allow us to build simulations that help people understand their cancers and their treatments and what's happening in their body with clinically proven impacts on healing. Or robust simulation platforms that have all kinds of uses in social simulation like influenza epidemics. This is a book with a title that's meant to grab your attention, but I highly recommend it. It's a book that shows how so much of our common day technology, whether it's a product or a process, originated out of one of 3 industries: pornography, defense and the military, or food. And in the preface, the author says most of the major technological advances have stemmed from these industries. And then at the bottom of that quote, he says, much of today's technology can be traced back to these industries that have been deemed to capture the worst of our humanity. So how do we reconcile this? So this question, where do I put my energy and how do I link what I do and how I feel about what I do? I think this becomes a personal question for each of us. It becomes a question of what we value and why. And perhaps the easiest answer, but maybe even the laziest answer, is to say, okay, well, we should all be working on human development issues. We should all be doing good engineering. But it's not even that simple, right? Because the world needs microchips and semiconductors, and freeways and bridges, and automobiles and satellites, and manufacturing processes. And there's no shame or negative value of being drawn to engineering for the sake of art, for example, or for the sake of technology, or for any other motivator. So the question is, what drives you? Does engineering as art drive you? Does engineering as technology drive you? Does engineering for social purposes drive you? Because the technology is amoral. And that's different than being immoral. I'm not saying technology is immoral. I'm saying it's amoral. It has no morals. It has no intention. It has no will, and it has no motives. We decide what is done with the technology and whether our efforts foster life-giving applications or not, and whether we promote social stability and economic stability and environmental sustainability and human justice and equality. And there are a million roads to those goals. We don't all have to take the same paths. So I'll give you 2 takeaways. Are we doing engineering well? Taking our orders from the public and fulfilling them well? Or are we doing good engineering, or are we doing both? And are we moral practitioners? Are we linking what we do with how we feel about what we do? Because when those things are out of sync, we feel it. We often think it's a problem of a bad boss, or unreasonable colleagues, or unrewarding tasks, or our talents aren't being seen and used by our company. But often it's a disconnect in what we do and what we really value, or what we think about what we do. And if we take these questions seriously, then we will be naturally seeking out communities to help us figure out our own answers. Because these questions about our priorities and our values, almost by necessity, they have to be worked out with other people. So we work those out through our day-to-day engineering studies. We work them out through workshops or seminars or technical lectures and networking that happens before these events, and a whole host of other community building activities that IEEE offers. So IEEE is an excellent venue to engage with these questions and these ideas in a network of colleagues that are drawn to the same field as you, that are kindred spirits in that regard. IEEE offers the opportunities to grapple with these questions and offers you a community to take these questions seriously, and I encourage you to engage with it. Because remember, as engineers, our life's work does make life work better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marcia, for such a thought-provoking talk. Now I'm glad to introduce Professor Witold Kinsner, the IEEE Canada President-elect, who's going to share with us his vision for IEEE Canada in the coming few years.
Ladies and gentlemen, the previous talk was just unbelievably good for me, for us. Because I intend to, in a few minutes, I intend to show you what IEEE was, is, and will be. And IEEE around 2005 started thinking about this big question. Is engineering really good? Or is it, are we doing well? All of the things that we ought to do. Engineering was imaged as a profession that utilizes science, then utilizes all engineering ideas, uses technology, uses mathematics and computing to solve problems. Problems, as you alluded, sometimes are problems to serve us very easily, too easily. I think that the IEEE that you will see coming into bloom much sooner than later will be an IEEE that will include another component, the morality of it, and also humanity of it. That will be driven not only by those components, science, engineering, technology, engineering, mathematics, and computing, but also community, humanity, where morality will play a critical role. In order to tell you that it's no longer a dream, but a reality, IEEE has introduced a humanitarian technology concept that is now repeated in different forms 3 times already as a global humanitarian technology conference, and started penetrating different countries, those that are developed primarily those that are developed, but those people who are in the developed countries should also think about the developing part of the world and the world that still suffers very much. So the problems that we ought to really look into will be very clearly including disasters, natural disasters. What did we do when as out of the country, everybody started talking about the tremendous blowout of the natural gas pipeline south of Winnipeg? How many days did it take to fix it? It's not fixed yet, although people are putting everything into it. Are we ready for not man-made, it's very natural disaster, to fix those problems and also prevent those problems from happening? So the natural disasters, but many of the man-made disasters, not only wars, but conflicts that seem to have no solution, where peace is the last issue that is discussed. So I think IEEE that I want to show you is moving towards is the IEEE that will include those components. And for me, that was a triggering factor that I thought I had to be a bigger part in order to implement it sooner. And within the last month, we already started doing things that were not done for many, many years. So it is possible to do it. This talk is to tell you that you are members of a beautiful organization, or an organization that has always been interested in extended education, in professional development, in dissemination of knowledge through seminars, workshops, various conferences, publications in different areas of engineering endeavor, but also ought to be and has been involved in preparing the next generation of workers, people who have conscience that dictates how we will perform, what we will do, how conscious we will be not only of our own needs, but the needs of others. So this is a transformation that is extremely attractive, and I think this has been already spotted by many young people that started flocking into it. And I will show you a few numbers about that too. But we always, IEEE Canada specifically, flourished and was very, very well off when we could see that it's not only the university, it is not only the company, it is not only the college, but it is really all of us that have to participate in that process, where the practitioners transfer their knowledge and experience to those who are seeking experience, those who want to do better. That process is a part of the components that we just discussed. And the idea over here is to engage the variety of different communities towards the common goals, seeing the big picture, and then participating with all our will and also conscience, not only the abilities, but the will to solve those problems sooner than later. And that is a part, that's the strength that I see in IEEE. So in order to prepare the new generation of people who would really be paying attention not only to how fast I can shoot someone on the screen, but how fast I can discover a method that has never been formulated before, how fast we can really discover the beauty of the participation in life to the fullest. And that has to start in kindergarten in my mind. But my wife says, well, that's probably not a good idea because you can't split yourself into 10 different parts. So we won't start from kindergarten today, maybe tomorrow. But you are starting not even in primary schools that much, but in high schools. Then you're sure worked for the last 2 years. The 4,200 people were not just an accident. It was a will of another person who put his life into designing a satellite. Today, other people like Dr. Biagova and others, putting everything into it to create even something that is better. That is the spirit of the individuals that I feel IEEE needs. That spirit has to be transferred to the new generation. So the outreach, pre-university and pre-college students have to be addressed. They have to see, not by talking, but by doing. I feel also that teaching theory in the classroom is a necessity, but is not sufficient to become a good engineer. That has to come through experiential learning. And I think the vision that I feel is good must include also the transfer and mingling of those who do know how to solve problems well and those who are seeking how to do good engineering. We will improve interactions between various sections, because discovering the wheel in each province is not the best idea. It will be much better than it has been. We will also strengthen the linkages between all of the partners, all of the stakeholders of the future. It's not the university, but everybody else. So that will come together too. And also, those people who have put that effort, who have exhibited that effort, should also be recognized. So those are some of the aspects. We have been improving the stuff that I mentioned to you. We've been improving how conferences will be really organized, run, and deliver that message, not only how to solve an equation, how to simulate, but also what is behind this and the people who are behind it. So those are some of the activities involved. Is it really possible? So this part now, a few minutes on what is changing. Why did the IEEE address this issue so late? We are growing in size. As you know, IEEE is one of the largest organizations or technical organizations on this planet. For the first time, in the last day of December, we exceeded 430,000 members. That's the total membership. So we are growing with the economy affecting the growth. And there is another issue that I want to show you. The numbers do not imply strength. There are some fundamental changes in the whole process of the membership structure. This is this line. This is a percentage of the total population. This indicates the percentage of people, members from the US side, regions 1 to 6, and then the red line indicates regions 7 to 10, all of the remaining part of the world. You can see the turnover. In the past, the US really dictated what ought to be done. Some of you may remember even conflicts, how IEEE withdrew access to journals in specific countries because we didn't like them. I think that the changes are very clear and self-explanatory, but that's only a part of the picture. So the other countries, like we are still in the third place over here in terms of population. That's the total population in the US, India, and so on. But look what is also happening over here. China has increased the population by over 300%. There are demographic changes of major magnitude. Those are earthquakes in terms of organizational structure. I think we cannot really ignore it. But the most important thing is the next generation of members. The next generation of members is also increasing very rapidly. This diagram shows undergraduate and graduate students combined, with some separation between them. You can see that this reflects the economy, but it's no longer reflects the economy. This reflects the need for solutions, the conscientious approach now to engineering, much deeper sense of morality in our work. This obviously indicates also what is happening. And again, while the contribution of the US, the regions of the US, North America, is decreasing, the Canadian, North America, the other part of North America, and the rest of the world is increasing. There is a rapid change in the population. Again, that's the total number of students. Look again at the situation in India. You probably heard that India, China alone produces 10 times more engineers than the rest of the world. Although the numbers may be disputed because they include many other professions too, under the umbrella of engineering. But there is a fundamental shift in thinking. We just cannot look at the development of toys. We have to look into the development of ideas that are much deeper. So, am I prepared to do some of the job? Well, I have some experience, both from the educational point of view, teaching research facilities, industrial experience. My specific interest is in intelligent systems, cognitive systems, with the abilities to do computing engines and computer memories with applications from biomedical, industrial monitoring control, aerospace, with many examples of projects, with a number of students graduated. This is the number of graduating students and capstone theses and projects and summer things. And I've been also very active trying to describe various activities in literature. I've been active at the Region 7 committees and schemes, from advisory committees for all the all the conferences, to being a co-editor of the Canadian Journal of Electrical Engineering, then organized 2002 fairly good conference, CCEC in Manitoba, and I started the Canadian Conference on Computer and Software Engineering Education in Canada. Was really pushing this for a while, and other conferences too. I've been active also at the council level and section level and student branch support. Belong to these societies, editor of many conference proceedings, co-editor or associate editor of various journals, and some awards. But this I brought at the end because you see one of the names over here of one of Winnipeg's, Ted Glass. I got inspired by Ted Glass, and I think Ted Glass was a person who talked in this way, who always, in the 70s, morality, conscientious approach to problem solving for all of us on this planet. And all of us would not include just one color, but all of us. Inspired me tremendously, spending it many times. Then we had Dave Kemp, who was the president of IEEE Canada. He's done many good things. He also thought about the future, the next generation. Gold was started by him. He continued that process. As of today, Gold has changed the name slightly to Young Professionals, but the idea is the same, more inclusive. So it is, I have big shoes to fit into. Maybe I will never fit, but I have also my shoes. And I will be fitting those shoes. I'll be walking in those shoes strongly, definitely in the future. And that's not a promise. All my life, I felt that had to be done. That's how it had to be done. So I'll show you a few things. In education, there are many models the model that I follow is really a part of the new revised now Teachers in Service program, where we would reach many people, many students, with the ideas that we just discussed, sooner than by just going and meeting each individual together. In order to do that, I participated in the Peguist First Nation Symposium, delivering workshops. One of the persons whose picture is over there, sitting over there too. That's the future engineers. When he, for example, there's a girl who came and said, "This workshop is not for me." That's how she started. I said, "That's fantastic, because you can really sit and just watch." In 5 minutes, she said, "I want to do it." I passed that lady to Mark. She finished the assembly of the robot. First, she joined the group. She did not say anymore, "This job is not for me." Maybe it is for me. So Mark used his abilities to communicate, to transfer that knowledge. The same was done by Gary. Then another person sitting on Mr. Anderson has done fantastic things also with students. They were like lighthouses that people just knew where to go. So I feel that our students in our educational institutions can do that. Catherine, Marcia, also participated in some other community activities, like the Space Camp, and also attracted many new women into engineering. It was no longer a question of wearing a hat. There were no hard hats in that camp. There was a passion to discover new things, and that passion was infectious. And that is the passion that is needed. I created also Team Canada to participate in the Young Engineers Satellite 2 with the European Space Agency. These people were in zero gravity, testing something, how to bring payloads from the International Space Station to ground without rocket fuel. Those were not things that were done for entertainment. And those are really one segment of problems that have to be solved. But those people, today, the Germans and our people, do good things. One of them is now at MIT, looking at other options. This is our satellite 2. This is the TSAT-1 that started from the concept. Many modifications on the concept. Then various embodiments from this to wood to others. And that is the assembled real satellite. This is the part that led to the second stage now, and hopefully the third and fourth and the fifth. In order to bring that satellite, I went to Russia to possibly negotiate a place on the Soyuz rocket so that they would put our satellites, whether we would win the competition or not. But the point of the deal is that this satellite did not exist. We did not buy that satellite. It was developed under the guidance again of Dario. It was developed as a unit, as a system. I could tell you for a day, full day, the story how that was transported without again Ahmed Biagawi. This would have never ended at David Florida Labs, where it had to be tested. He's done fantastic things to bring it over there, to actually have it happen. So the point I'm making is this: it's not just one individual that will make the difference, but it is all of us, the older ones who know how not to do things, and those who don't. When we bring together those ideas, perhaps tomorrow will be a better one. So this was a group of over 100 people participating in it, with 50 advisors from different walks of life. This was a structure that involved many stakeholders. from academic to aerospace, to industrial, to business, to military, including amateur radio. So, although I did not mention everybody, but many of you already have participated in pushing the barriers, developing, erasing some of the barriers, and saying, yes, this may be done one day. And that is done through the various activities. So, in closing, I would like to thank you all, first for electing me to this position. But I don't see it as a place where I will be sitting and watching. I've already been running quite fast. It will be for me a great honor to actually continue serving IEEE from a new perspective, new horizon, with new people who share the same ideas. And all of us can make IEEE a better place. I feel that each section, each chapter, but each section territorially separate, we cover not only Manitoba, but Northwest Ontario, is a laboratory. A laboratory not to do technology, science, engineering, technology, mathematics, computing better, but a laboratory that would allow us to discover a deeper meaning of life through being together and not ignoring others, participating not only in the natural disasters, but also reducing those conflicts that lead to disasters maybe even deeper. We can't explain the first class. We have to overcome the ability, our ability also to induce and to trigger of the second kind. IEEE is positioning itself to play a vital role, to facilitate, and to continue a process of learning. Learning how to be better, how to do good engineering, how to provide good solutions, how to care for one another. So the model now, as I mentioned, will not include the STEM plus computing plus the other things, but also all of us. And if we could accomplish, I think the conscious, one of the voices will say, the job is good. Thank you.
Question?
Is there opportunity for questions?
If you would like to, by all means. Well, dinner is going to be served after we're done with this question. Please go ahead.
Well, first of all, I was inspired by both speakers, Marcia and Professor Kinsner, and this focus is indeed exciting. I would like to say that, though, that although you have articulated it now, I think this has always behind the scenes been the focus of IEEE, and I think we participated in it. One thing I'd just like to add is that you mentioned new horizons and new people, but don't forget the old people are also allowed to help you. but just a question, I have a couple of questions. The first is the student membership figure included in the total membership?
Which one, the students?
Yes.
Total, yes, 431 is including the student numbers.
And for those of you, those of us who don't know about the satellite project, I believe you are in a competition and you've already reached the first 3 in Canada.
Yes.
And one of them will be selected for a space flight. But from your speech, I understood that even if we don't win the competition, you're negotiating with the Russians to launch our satellite from the Manitoba satellite.
Yes. And the reason for it is this. Competition is a competition. You may lead for a while, as we did. And then in the final stage, the body, it was not fully functional, space ready. The next generation of it now, will it be space ready? I'm sure that if you will ask those people who participate, Mr. Lamberta, they will say, of course, but it may not be. Is this the end of the world? This is called competition. For me, it has nothing to do with competition. It is to see what really happened to each individual, what they've learned, what different people they were at the end of it. That is the outcome of that endeavor. It is the learning process that matters. But if we have the best satellite, and it won't be trying in space, you will say, it's not good. So Russia was one step. I've been trying for 2 years to reach the Chinese, unsuccessful. They attended my presentation in China. The following day I had a discussion with Harbin, those people who actually develop their rockets.
And India is also launching satellites.
And India, we had discussions with India too. And so there are many options. This is one of them. So the point is that although it is competition, it's good to win. I think it's much better to learn. The toughest stuff that there
We
is.
will win.
It's better to do both. Well, thank you. Any more questions to Professor Kinsner?
By the way, I did not ignore any, I stated 3 times.
That was a joke.
There is no regeneration without growth. There is a continuum in life.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll give you the hand. Ladies and gentlemen, the food is ready, dinner is ready, so please help yourselves, and we'll take about half an hour or so, and then we'll resume with the official AGM business for this